Being like, see, I don't think the way that you think. I don't work the way that you work. It's the reason I'm God and you're not. And he's trying to refocus us. He's trying to reshift. But I think when we look at this passage and we hear these words, we think God's declaring it from a place of superiority, which he could because he's God. We think that God is reminding us of this truth from a posture of, I need you to understand the relationship that I'm here and you're here. And then I think we've misunderstood what God was trying to say when he said, I do not think the way that you think. I do not work the way that you work. It was not a statement of superiority. It was an invitation to a new life. It's what God is telling you and I. He's saying the same way that I think, the same things that drive me are accessible to you. That you have the same capacity to create beauty the way that I do. That you have the same ability that when you move, it seems as if life explodes from it. He says you have that same capacity in you. But what you have to decide is to stop thinking you have to be in control. Because when we are in control of our life, you know what we do? We suck the life out of it. That hit her, right? Because we're afraid, because we're terrified. We just hold on desperately. I mean, you know what's crazy? We hold on to existence and we miss out on life. And we're just so focused on control. See, we have a misconception and a misunderstanding of God that we think God is controlling. But he's not. It's a half degree off. God is not controlling, but he is in control. See, he's trying to remind you and I, when the storms hit, when the uncertainty feels overwhelming, when you don't know how to move through the clouds, he's saying there's a different way. I'm in control. I can give you a new hope and a new way and a new life. There's a new you waiting to be unleashed. And there's a third misconception that we have about God. And it's this. It's that God wants complete control over my life. But here's the truth of the matter. He wants complete control over your life. See, it's absolutely true. But it may not be in the way that you think it is. See, it may not be because God is power hungry. It may not be because he wants to be the one that is orchestrating all your steps and he's forcing you to make these decisions and these choices. No. God wants complete control over your life because it's in his hands that you actually find life. And I know for me, there are way more moments than I wish were true when I am so filled with fear and I am so afraid of the future and I am so afraid of failure that I try to control every little thing. And on the other side of my control is always bondage. How about you? Every time I hold on so tight and I feel that I don't know what's next and I don't have the courage to move. Every time when I hold on tight and I try to control my life, every minute I'm in control is a minute I lose of my future. And God wants complete control over your life because it's an exercise in trust. It's an exercise in alignment. He's trying to get you and I to the place where we realize there is no one that is more trustworthy with our lives in their hands than God. You guys remember the miracle on the Hudson? About a decade ago, you had this incredible story of this plane that took off from New York, and they hit a flock of birds, took out both engines, and from takeoff to landing in the Hudson, and all 153 people surviving, it was 3.5 minutes. Can you imagine how stressful that must have been? Knowing that as the pilots, you have all these lives in your hands and things that were out of your control. They had no control over when the bird strike would happen. They had no control over the engines going out. They had no control over everything that would happen to them in this crisis. And I think a lot of times this is where we miss it, is that we get caught up in the crisis that we don't fight for the solution. And it's this crazy moment where pilots would say, it's a miracle, it's crazy, impossible what happened, they should not have survived. In every airline simulation, there is no simulation on how to land on water because you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. So they couldn't even practice it. And in 3.5 minutes, they had to make choice after choice after choice on how they would save these passengers. And I want to encourage you, go and listen to the recording. It is it's better than any Netflix show you'll watch. And they're just throwing out ideas, and air traffic control is, do you want to land back at JFK? And they say, no, not enough time. Do you want to land at Teterboro? Nope, too far away. Do you want to land here? Do you want to land here? And then all of a sudden, Captain Sully, Tom Hanks, right, looks at that co-pilot and he says, we're landing in the Hudson. And it's this beautiful moment. And there's so many insights and so many truths. But this one is one that for me was the most interesting. Is that before these next 3.5 minutes of the miraculous would happen, there's a conversation between Captain Sully and his co-pilot. And it's these simple words where Captain Sully says, my airplane. And then the co-pilot utters back to him, your airplane. And it's this moment where, built into the framework of pilot, co-pilot, and that relationship, you cannot take control of the plane. It has to be given to you. So that when there's moments of crisis, so that when there's moments where you just have to decide quickly, one person isn't trying to do one thing while the other is trying to do the other. And they have to come into agreement that it's your airplane. See, God wants to be the pilot in your life. See, God wants to take control over every aspect of your life. But all he does is he looks at you and he whispers, my airplane. And he waits. He won't take control. He won't grab the steering wheel. He won't force you to go in a direction even though it will be better for you. As he just waits. And he waits. And he waits. And he waits for you to finally stop white-knuckling. And the plane's going down and he waits for you to have the courage to say, your airplane.